Hey everybody, it's Carm here. I'm back with a new video, and for the first time focusing on a single artist. Someone I've been a fan of for quite some time now and been revisiting his music lately, Michael Garrison. In my opinion, probably one of the more overlooked electronic and synth-based artists. And I've been fortunate to find all of his albums over the years, mostly on CD. He recorded from 1979 to 1998 and sadly passed away very young, the age of 47 in 2004. But he left behind a great catalog of music, very Berlin-inspired. I mentioned before about like Klaus Schulze, Tangerine Dream, as well as Jean-Michel Jarre maybe, and Vangelis, even some Baroque touches like some Bach in his melodies. But well, I'll just start right in. This first album here. This is shown a couple times by, I know I saw Jeff Vinyl Spin show this, and Chris JC68, in the Regions of Sun Return from 1979 on Windspell Records, his own label. Something that's, I think, really a signature feature of his albums is the artwork. Just very striking, dreamy covers. Areas in the back there. The instrumentation stayed pretty consistent, I think, throughout most of his albums. He pretty much stuck with analog, it seemed, most of the way. On this particular one, it's very rhythmic, very atmospheric, sequencer based, also introducing kind of early drum machines. But there's a certain exuberance about his music, like just the joy of exploration that I hear in just about everything that he's done. And a real good balance between, you know, the serene, dreamy, spacey, and the kind of high energy charged, which was just starting to, you know, just getting going on this album. So, you know, appropriately enough, it's a great introduction to his, to what he does. Next here, I have Prisms from 1981. Still in a similar vein, although this one got a little more, I think, more rhythmic, you know, more of the up-tempo, and yeah, just really powerful stuff. The opening cut, Eruption, starts off with for the first couple minutes just this drone, and then it is like an eruption, only very slow and gradual, which you know, there's like a certain suspense to it. This third album is what's playing right now, Eclipse from 1982. The song that's playing now is called Departure. And again, with the covers, they just get more and more just, you know, just mesmerizing to me. And this is the first album that introduces vocals into the mix by a singer named Sherry Barna. He writes the music and the lyrics. At times, it has like a certain pop structure to it, but it doesn't sound like, you know, he's compromising trying to, you know, by adding lyrics. It seems to really, they're very well integrated and very well performed by both of them. That instrument there, it looks like a precursor to the guitar. I'm not sure if it's self-designed or not, but it was the first time I saw it, that early version of it. This next one here, I've showed in a recent video. I think I played some of it. Point of Impact from 1983. This one gains a little bit more of the song structure, like more of a traditional song structure, you know, somewhat pop sounding, but again without you know, sounding like it's compromising. Also a couple bonus cuts from other albums on here. And this was, I think this was the album that made him at least a little more well known amongst, you know, the core of his fans. I think this was the second or third album I found by him. Half of these albums actually I found in one place. An all CD store, which is actually still running to this day. This next album from 1986, Images. This one, you know, he becomes more rhythmically charged with the drum machines. Sounds like he used the early, you know, like analog drum machines, the rhythm machines from the 70s. He kind of stuck with those most of the way through. It's recorded between, again, that cover. This is something I'd love to have on LP just for this reason alone. I recorded between 1985 and 86. Yeah, this is probably, up to this point, this is probably his most up-tempo album. And next comes the album that was my introduction to him, and I would recommend, if anyone sees this, Aurora Dawn. Just very, very powerful stuff. Very rhythmic and atmospheric in equal measure, like, you know, just about everything else. But it has, in some ways, a harder edge without being harsh. This one's from 1988. Yeah, recorded between 87 and 88. Although at times it could be, sounds like it could be from 77, 78. He still pretty much stayed with the analog. Now on this next album, though, this is where he went, started to go more digital. An Earth Star trilogy and songs from the Earth Star. This is from 89, recorded in 87, 88. This is where more of the digital instruments come in, but yet it's still, there's still a certain pattern and tone to his music that stayed very much the same throughout the years. You see the instrumentation there, you know, more with like digital drums. And there he is, he got quite gray at this point, even though he's still a young man. If any of you have, sure some of you have seen Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's an old favorite show of my brother and I. The music on here sounds very much like, you know, when they would go from like the outro to like the commercial. Sounds very much, it's very much in that flavor, which you know, is another thing that really appeals about it. This is probably his most cheerful sounding album to me. And this next one, Rhythm of Life, very much in the same vein as the previous one, although it seems like he was harking back to earlier music in some ways, trying to strike a balance between, you know, the newer technology and the older technology, and still keeping his aesthetic what it was. There's a couple of vocal tunes on here. This one, Looking for You, is probably the closest thing to like a pop, you know, like a radio friendly song, but still had his signature on it. And these next couple here are compilations. Michael Garrison Collection, Volume 1 and Volume 2. This is Volume 1, A Positive Reflecting Glow. This is his more rhythmic stuff, upbeat, called mostly from his early albums, as well as a couple unreleased tunes. It's from 92. Good introduction to that aspect of him. And Tranquility Cove is more serene, spacey. I use this sometimes for, you know, this is great to sleep to. Not in the sense that it's boring, but it's just it just kind of lulls you. So just very peaceful and dreamy. So these would be very recommended, very much recommended when I hear those two sides of him separate, you know, those two strains. And the next couple here is his only live albums. Live Volume 1. Similar to the compilations, except with the balance of those, you know, those two approaches. And the songs, you know, taken from early albums as well as a couple newer ones. Mostly short, you know. It seems like his shortest piece is it has a very concise feel to it. Almost kind of like, you know, a pop rock approach where they play the songs pretty much straight from how it was done on the albums. So he didn't really improvise, but it's still, you know, a good representation. And interesting hearing some of the earlier pieces being played with some of the newer technology blended in. I think there's a picture on the inside too. And it's him playing live in action there. And these are from 1995. And finally, this last album that he did, Brave New Worlds, in 1998. This one was just, I think it's kind of a, I don't know if this was intended for him, that he wanted to make this his final album. You know, he his last 6 years of his life he didn't make an album, so I don't know if he knew something. It's hard to say, but it sounds like it's almost like a consolidation of his, or like a summation of all his work up until this point. There's a nostalgic yearning quality to this whole album, which is much stronger than any of the other ones. When I listen to it, it even brings me back to second or third grade, which was, you know, like in the early 80s, but it just it just has this, yeah, this is yearning to it. It just is really powerful. And yet still, you know, sounds like him. He never compromised and never tried to sound like anyone else. I mean, you could hear other influences, of course, but you know, he was so consistent, I feel, throughout his career, and just glad to have come across him when I did, and you know, grateful to have everything, and I would highly recommend anything by him. As I say, his earliest albums all have, you know, that similar flavor, and even going later on, as the technology changed, he kept, you know, he just kept going right through it, staying true to his own vision, what it sounded like to me. And yeah, so just want to share that for my first little artist. I guess you could say it's a profile. Well, thank you all for watching, and yeah, plan to do more of these. Got a few more artists, and some more revisited finds to go back through. So hope we're all doing well. Thanks for watching, and till next time, take care.